as well. So that's what you see the camera for. So we're recording and she's sharing this all through Zoom, just so you know that. Okay? Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. DuPlante. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? This hot, lovely summer day. I want to first thank Dr. DuPlante for the kind invitation to come out today and to share a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. And I just wanted to share that in terms of nursing. You're entering a field where it's very challenging. Next year, this time, you will be professional nurses taking care of patients in whatever capacity. And patients are going to look to you as to what do I need, what do I not need to have happen, families. They're looking for information. And how I came across this topic in nursing is quite by accident, and I just wanted to share it with you and frame it also in the sense of self-care. How do we as nurses take care of ourselves as we're caring for patients out in, whether it's in the hospital, community, or business setting. So there's different places. Just a little bit of background information of myself. I am a proud diploma graduate. I graduated back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. So I've been nursing a little bit of time. So I'm a proud diploma graduate, very happy to say that. And I went back and got my bachelor's, went back again, got my master's, went back again and got my doctoral degree. All the while I've been working full-time, going to school nighttime. And I have had experiences in the hospital, in the business settings. I have taught baccalaureate nurses as yourselves. I have also taught in preceptive master's degree nurses as well as LPNs. So I have always been teaching. My love in nursing is community health nursing, public health nursing, urban health nursing, whatever that title might be for your institution. Something always draws me back to the community. Why? Because that's where patients live. They don't live in the hospital. Home is whatever it might be for them, whether it's their own private home, within the residence of their family, maybe in a skilled nursing facility. But that's home. The hospital is not home. Our goal as nurses when we're in the hospital is what? Get them treated, get them home. Now, most recently, I was at Penn Medicine. A lady had a stroke on Monday. She was discharged Tuesday. I'm talking to her. How did that happen? They treated her and streeted her. That's my terminology. I'm like, the lady had a stroke. Yeah, our goal is to get them in, get them out now. So it's very fast paced in that regard. And one of my positions, I was working with the homeless population with men out in the Germantown area. And I was the nurse manager. I did direct care. And my goal was to go out to 4 area hospitals and to identify these homeless men that might be primed for the program that I was working for. And so I went out and I would go out and do that and come back in. Really a hustle bustle type of job. And each year there's a national conference for the providers of individuals that are homeless that was held, just like we have national conferences for nursing, national conferences for this social aspect. Well, I'm looking at the brochure for this national homeless program presentation in Washington. I didn't get to go, but I got to see the brochure. And I'm looking through the brochure, real interesting, and then saw this workshop, something cultural humility. And I said, what's that? I didn't know. So that started my quest, and it captivated me so much, resonated so much that I kept involving myself in research to the point where I did a whole dissertation. Let me ask a question and we'll move forward. Please feel free to ask questions if you have any, something pops up, feel free. It's better to be an exchange between us today. How many people have heard of cultural competence in nursing or in general? Okay, 4, 2 more. Okay, how about the term of cultural humility? Okay. That was the gap in nursing that I identified for myself that made me go on this quest to do a dissertation. I didn't know what it was either. So I started looking up and it's like, oh, okay. It resonated so much with me in terms of my experience in terms of being a community health nurse. It really fit very nicely. In terms of what I would like to move forward with, and please feel free to ask questions as we go forward. See, oops, wrong one, sorry. In terms of the objectives today, I would just like to provide some background information on cultural humility as a nursing concept, because not many people have heard of it. Provide the definition within nursing of this particular concept. Also, I would like to describe the recent nursing research that I conducted on this particular topic, and to say that nursing, we have to catch up on this topic. Psychology, social work, medicine, they have this topic and they're doing something with it. And in my research, I was like, hey, what's nursing doing with it? Not enough. So this is where I hope it prompts some information, some forethought. To be culturally humble is not something that you will walk out of here today with. It is a lifelong process of understanding. But if today I could just sort of tease your brain a little bit to sort of upset the thought process that you currently have to think of, oh, do I do that? Did I think that thought? You might have. Do I really feel that way? I don't know. It's a self-examination that will come as you learn in terms of this topic of what it means. And to offer some ways of learning this process of cultural humility, starting to learn it in terms of self-care, the topic of self-care, caring for oneself so that we don't get compassionate fatigue as we're preparing and caring for our patients. They have so many needs and we can't care for all of them. It's just so much. And then we're always up against the clock. Got to get everything done. And then you have an admission coming in 20 minutes and you still have minutes to go. And someone's family member wants to talk to you. And you got a critical lab result that you've got to call somebody about. And and it goes on and on and on. In terms of the significance of this topic, let me just sort of frame it. We have health disparities in our society that really, unfortunately, contribute to human death and suffering. It's a statement of fact. In terms of how we as nurses, in addressing how can we eliminate these health disparities, it is a challenge. We have folks, sometimes I call the divide is the haves and the have-nots. It's not too much of a little medium area right now. You either have health insurance or you're done. And if you have it, it's going to open up a cadre of services. If you don't, cadre of services is going to look different. It's going to look very, very different. So it's a challenge in our society. But I want to really drill home in terms of culture, those ideas, beliefs, customs that we all come from. We are in a culture of nurse. You're aspiring to be nurses. I know what it is to sit in the chair and to learn and to hear the lecture and go on and on. I know you're preparing for NCLEX. I understand that. Next year this time, you will be professional nurses. You no longer will be the student, but you will be the professional nurse, caring for the patient out in society in that regard. Please remember that culture plays a very, very dynamic, a very critical point in how healthcare is perceived, accessed, and delivered. And as I go forward, perhaps that point will become a little bit more real as I move forward. In terms of the national significance of this particular topic, the American Association of Colleges and Nurses, AACN, the Agency for Healthcare Research Quality, and all these other national entities, Healthy People 2020, HRSA, National League of Nursing, Office of Minority Health, they all recognize that in society, as health providers, we have to be responsive to patients that are in our care, regardless of color, creed, orientation of gender, regardless. They're a patient, they require our best. They don't require necessarily a judgment as to who gets what. You have insurance, okay, I'll give you the best of my care. You don't have insurance, you get whatever I can give you. Everybody, from my perspective, should receive the best that we as nurses can provide to them. And in terms of addressing that cultural aspect, those cultural differences, if we address them, perhaps we can understand why these health disparities are present and how we as a profession can help to reduce the likelihood of them being there. Cultural humility is a tool that we are going to use in our repertoire of nursing ideas, programs, care plans that we can institute to help manage patients better in terms of providing nursing care. On a national education level, again, the AACN in 2008 put out this very critical document that guides this program here at Widener and other baccalaureate nursing programs across the country in terms of provides the framework of what needs to be included curricularly in a nursing program where we have baccalaureate nurses coming out. In 2008, the essentials, there's 9 of them total, but essential number 7 resonated with me in terms of this topic, in terms of clinical prevention and population health. I'm in community health that resonated with me in terms of addressing health promotion, disease and injury prevention across the lifespan of the individual and the population, not just the patient themselves. Patients are from the community, and whatever that community is defined as, is for the patient to share with us. In terms of nursing educators, we instruct in terms of providing culturally appropriate care and competent care. What does that look like in terms of providing culturally competent and appropriate care? What do you think that might look like? Anybody? Culturally appropriate and competent care. Say it. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, sure.
Like understanding different cultures and things that they might like need to do in their care. And offering them different things.
Allowing that patient, their family, sometimes hospital food, we always hear, oh God, it's horrible, but we know that song, right? But if the patient's not eating and their family member brings in a dish that is native to their culture, and I might recognize, yeah, that's high in sodium, yeah, you know. Patient's not eating. Where am I going to flip to? I'm going to mediate. Person's eating, they're getting some nutrition. Yeah, I know it's high in sodium. Maybe I can work with the preparer of the food. Not to tell them how to do it. Tell me how you do it. And well, maybe have you thought of rather than putting salt in, maybe we can put maybe a little Mrs. Dash in there as a seasoning, which will help the patient to eat. And then it will help in terms of blood pressure management. So it's engaging the patient, the family, culture that they come from. That's addressing care that is culturally appropriate and competent. But there is a definite gap in the nursing curriculum in terms of this topic. Hence, by my little survey I did today, how many have heard of cultural humility? And I will venture to say there are nursing educators that don't know about it either. So that's where my research went. I went to the individuals that instruct, and I offered them an opportunity. Tell me, as the researcher, what you know about cultural humility and how is it presented. I didn't know. I needed them to tell me in terms of research, because my research was stating that there's a gap in terms of faculty knowing what it is. And if faculty don't know, how can they teach this concept? And then I went back to the AACN, and it's in the essentials, where we teach nurses in programs of study such as this, how to be culturally competent in care. Cultural humility is in the essentials. My question came back to, well, how come we're not talking about it? So it was unteasing, and in terms of bringing that information forth. It might be on, say, maybe a syllabus, but it's a presenter. Am I invited to come out and talk about it? I am today. I'm so glad to say that. I hope someone else picks up the mantle and say, hey, maybe come and present it. I know it's being recorded, but so what? I'll come out. I have no problem with that. I would love to. So there is definitely a gap in our nursing curriculum in terms of instruction of this concept by nursing faculty of this concept in nursing education. So I've asked the question I asked earlier, are you familiar with cultural competence? A little bit more, where it's like, okay, this culture does ... We have maybe a checklist, and like, check. Yeah, did that, check. It's more than that. How about cultural humility then? Duh. No, not there. Hopefully, as you move forward, you'll hear about it. I would even venture to say the nurses in your clinical settings might not have heard of this. And you're new, you're able to, hopefully I'm able to impart some information, some knowledge that you can take out into practice, because I take it out into my practice. Nurses I work with, I say, they'll ask me, what are you working on? I'm working on my da-da-da-da. What's your topic? Cultural humility. Oh, okay, Lynn. No, come back here. Let me share with you what I'm working on. It might have a positive impact on how you are dealing with your patient situation that I see blowing up down the hallway there. Maybe I can help you mediate a little bit of that if you kind of maybe add a little bit of this or that, or take away this or that from your behavior. In terms of the potential significance of this concept, it certainly has a place. Nursing science and research, more needs to be done. As I was going through my research, I found that this topic was oftentimes enmeshed, embedded in literature on cultural competence. They're two different entities. They're two different, but it's blended. So I had to tease that information out. Nursing practice, it does impact on nursing practice, how we relate to our patients, because we're now not only relating to them, how are we relating to ourselves so that we can better provide care to our patients. Curricular enhancements, where this topic is something that is in the perhaps part of your course. You're seniors now. Did you hear about this topic when you were freshmen? Sophomore? Junior? You're seniors now. And it's not uncommon that it doesn't hit until, if at all, at the senior level. Why? Because this is what your community health experience time, population health in that regard. As I go through and share with you, there are moments where there's a thought pattern and I kind of ascribe with it. This needs to start in the freshman year and thread throughout the curricular education of students, so that when now you're in the senior year, you can really frame your projects, the service learning projects that you're working with now. Maybe something from here can help you as you are framing your projects as you move forward as seniors in that regard. I hope so. Improved health outcomes, yes, in terms of getting our patient from a more negative to maybe a little bit more positive health outcome, or if they're at a point where they're not going to necessarily get better, how can we make them as comfortable and their family as comfortable, especially during end-of-life services, when it's very important to this particular family that they have their religious leader come in and pray and maybe burn incense. And we're in the hospital, and that's what we're lamps. How do we get around that? And the person might have a situation where we're in isolation. So we close the door. And culturally, the family says we need to leave the door open in case the patient expires, so that the spirit can go to the thereafter. And to hear the chanting that might be going on in the room, which is important. There's a cultural expression that is important to that client, to that family. And you might hear someone at the nurse's station say, oh, that noise. Kind of insensitive to the needs of that patient and family, kind of insensitive. And in terms of workforce development, pattern yourself after the best that you can find in terms of nursing out there in practice. I know we have all seen examples of not good practice behavior of nurses. I know you have. I've been a preceptor, I've been a teacher. I know it exists. And I'm not happy with those folks' behaviors. And I have kind of said to the side, maybe I do something else. Have you thought about, I saw on Indeed.com, job that just real perfectly good. Because right now, you just seem to be real burnt out. That comes with experience, though. Don't do that going out into practice. Don't do that. But there are some folks that maybe they do need to move on. This is maybe enough for them in terms of they're not giving their best, maybe because of the pressures of the job, which are many. But in terms of doing that, always rising above that and giving your best. So in terms of a definition, in my research, when I was looking at that brochure, and these two physicians, they were from Philadelphia, over CHOP, Trevelyan and Mary Garcia, two female physicians. They're now in California. And in their instruction of medical students, they were finding out that the students and the families weren't hitting. There was a mismatch. Why is the resident coming out flustered? Why is the family flustered? Get out of here, don't come back. What was happening? The residents couldn't understand, didn't understand that perhaps their behavior was contributing to the misunderstanding of what was trying to be imparted in terms of health. If someone is talking down to you, that doesn't produce a very meaningful exchange environment. It sets up a dichotomy where, how dare you talk to me that way? I'm the doctor, I know what I'm talking about. You may know what you're talking about, but you're not going to talk to me in that tone. It doesn't work. So it's a mismatch where it needs to be more like this. Tell me what it is about you that I need to know so that together we can plan care for you. And that's what was missing. And these physicians were the first to coin it back in 1998. Their article is now very much sentinel in terms of it's been referenced thousands and thousands and thousands of times. It really has its place. It's even in the essentials. And I was like, wow, this is really cool beans for me. So the variation of this one of the definition may vary, but it still comes back to lifelong, and I highlighted that. There is definitely a lifelong commitment to self-awareness and self-reflection on oneself with critique. What I am saying in terms of self-reflection with critique, I don't mean, oh, I had such and such for breakfast this morning, reflecting back one after. No, critical in terms of, am I harboring any assumptions, biases, prejudices, misconceptions about others that may look, hear, or sound different than I do? Am I harboring that? Is that coming into the conversation? Am I pegging this person inappropriately based on my own stuff? So that's where that critical self-reflection with critique comes in. And whereas the individual, you're not only learning about somebody else's culture, but you're looking at your own culture. Did I learn that from my grandma? This is how we do the cake in terms of the mixture of the ingredients. Some people cook by looking at things. They don't use a measuring cup. They just handful of this, pinch of that, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. Don't necessarily use the 1.5, a quarter, and it comes out superbly in that respect. So we're looking at that examination of our own beliefs and cultural identities of not only the patient, but of ourselves. Yeager and Bauer Wu, two nursing researchers that really hit home in terms of how, in terms of nursing research, to move forward for nursing research, what we need to pay attention to. So that definition really resonated with me as a nurse and in terms of my work of moving forward. So then I went, okay, now what? I got this information, I have a topic, I want to do something with it. Okay. So after much more research, before I even got to the dissertation, research, concept analysis, all this other good stuff, a lot of good stuff. After getting IRB approval, I set out to go on my journey in terms of researching this. And the purpose of my research was to describe this concept of cultural humility from the perspective of nursing faculty in the process of baccalaureate students. I don't know what the concept was, how the faculty that I was able to get to participate. I didn't know what their thoughts were. That's what I wanted to hear. Because what kept resonating was, the students don't know about it. I'm reading in the research and the students are reading about it because it's not being presented. Maybe not being presented because the instructor doesn't know that it exists to present it. And it exists in the AACN as a framework. So that's where I start out on my quest for information. These were the research questions that I formulated with my committee in terms of moving forward with the research in and of itself in terms of what are the nursing faculty perceptions, because I don't know what they were. I want them to tell me what they were. What are the characteristics from their perspective? Because the nursing faculty had to self-identify as being knowledgeable of cultural humility as an inclusion criteria for this study. If a nursing faculty in my screening, and if I found out that they didn't know what it was, I couldn't necessarily include them as part of my population because they didn't have a sense of it, but they self-identify as having knowledge of this concept, then that put a different light on terms of my research findings. And 3, how did the nursing faculty demonstrate it in the educational context? Students were self-identified as, yes, I'm culturally humble. I teach this. All right, tell me how. Tell me how you do that. Not challenging them, but just I need to understand so that I can help to disseminate that information and going forward. So my methodology, I did a qualitative descriptive study, which allowed me to hear from my participants from their perspective, not mine, but theirs. Tell me what you think in that regard. I didn't have a theory to frame my work because there was nothing I could hang this on to because not a whole lot of people knew about it. So I didn't have a theory. I went in atheoretically. But I had a framework of getting the information and allowing the participants to share it naturally. Just give it to me. Whether I was happy with what I heard or not, I just had to hear it. I had to stay neutral, but I had to hear what they had to offer in terms of this topic. So I ended up doing 7 online focus group sessions using Zoom. You're familiar with Zoom, right? Okay, it's different when you have to buy it at home and to do it. Oh, a little different. Oh my God, I had such agita, but I got through it. I had such agita though. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was the researcher / moderator for all of the groups in that regard. I ended up with 20 participants, which was plenty. Really was plenty. And they worked full-time or part-time in nursing, whether in the classroom, in the clinical, or both. Some did a breakdown of both. I had all females, had 14 white participants, 5 Black, and 1 Hispanic, with the age range from 30 to 66. And the years of teaching, you can see the variation from 2.5 years of teaching. The person was a nurse longer than 2.5 years, but they were teaching within that last year for 2.5, up to 38 years of nursing experience. So I had years and years of experience. Recruitment, I did a snowball sampling where I said, Cecilia, I'm doing a study. I need you to tell your nursing faculty that you work with, I'm doing a study. Here's my flyer. Circulate it for me. Okay. Cecilia, do you self-identify? Yeah, okay. I went through my screening questions during the study, Cecilia. Help me get some more folks. And that's essentially how I got my folks, by word of mouth. I was getting emails from people I didn't even know. South Carolina, I don't know anybody in South Carolina. But the lady had my email, was like, I want to participate in your study. I'm happy to have you participate. And it was just very, very nice in terms of how one person told another. That's how I got my 20 folks. Took a minute, but I got them. And those were the instruments that I used in terms of getting the information that came down and had to be analyzed as I was moving forward. In my data analysis, I had pages and pages and pages of transcripts after each focus group session. They lasted a maximum of 2 hours. I had like 2 to 4 people in each group on different days that I would take off early from work and go set up with Zoom at home and do this, because I was at home and they were at home, so I didn't have the travel issue of having to meet them somewhere. So I had not thousands, but I had hundreds of transcript pages that I had to go through after getting all this information. And in terms of qualitative research, I started to look for patterns of similarity. I kept hearing the same thing from my 20 people. I ended up with 6 themes, 3 sub-themes, and 3 strategies in terms of nursing information. These were the things that I was able to come up with. Having self-awareness of one's own culture. I kept hearing that over and over and over again. That was very important. With a sub-theme of being respectful and humble. Without respect, how can we move forward in dealing with our patient interaction if we don't have the respect of self and of others, and of the differences that may be there, but we move beyond those differences. There's more that's similar to us than is different. Another theme was being self-reflective. It is ongoing. As I said, as you leave today, you won't have cultural humility under your belt, but at least you may now have heard of it as you move forward, as you're getting ready to graduate in a few months' time. So being self-reflective with the self-theme of self-discovery. People are noticing, oh my goodness, I'm thinking about myself now in terms of my cultural influences that are coming up in my interactions. Walking in another's shoes was real profound in some of the examples that the participants shared in terms of what that meant to them for cultural humility in their education of students. The other things was respecting other cultures, being unbiased, distinguishing between cultural humility and cultural competence, big thrust in terms of it's still, even today, the literature is still enmeshed, and you still have to tease it out to separate one from the other. And threading this concept throughout nursing curricula from freshman through senior year of education. And some of the strategies that were identified in the study were how do my nursing faculty participants instruct, and cultural humility. They said we use nursing simulations. There are other ways of getting this done, but they use nursing simulation as one tool. Interpersonal communication skill, how one deals with someone else, very, very important. And role modeling. As I said, as you go out, pick the behavior that you most want to emulate yourself, and you will come out with your own sense of nursing as you become a professional nurse. Don't pick nurse crotchety as a role model. Not a good example. Not a good example. No, you don't want to be nurse crotchety too. No. So role modeling, behavior. Sounds like, oh my God, what am I going to do with all this? These transcripts, all these comments, oh my gosh. So I had to sort them out. And in terms of after getting my themes and sub-themes situated, I still had a whole lot of information that was very rich in content, but it didn't fit a theme, sub-theme, or category or a strategy. But my folks were commenting on the idea of self-critique for themselves, but they were critiquing. I have to be not only knowledgeable of my student, I need to be knowledgeable of how I relate to my student. I must respect my student as I instruct them. That was the faculty's self-critique of themselves, which was very important. So I was very glad to hear that your best interest is always at heart for them, definitely. Critical behavior. Yes, how we conduct ourselves is a critical behavior. It can open the door or shut it in terms of interacting with patients and families. And a redirection of thought processes. We all know we've got to do vitals, get them into your clinical instructor so they can get into this electronic health record, you get these meds out. What med is it? Da, 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 da. We all get that. But in terms of redirecting our thought processes with the patient who may be at their end of life, you're not going to go at this pace on end of life on a person. And you might have a little elderly person where you're not going to say, okay, now your furosemide is 1 pill every day. You're my what? That's just what they're going to say. You're my what? What, that little white pill? The white pill that you take that makes you pee? Oh, that one. Yeah, you've got to sometimes come down to their understanding in order to get your teaching across to them. So in terms of the findings, which was very much that lifelong process, it develops over time. It doesn't happen overnight. And it's demonstrated through respect and empathy on part of the faculty towards the patient and your students. I thought that was very profound in terms of the sensitivity. Definitely was there. And a finding, as I shared with you earlier, not all nursing faculty know about cultural humility as a concept. Maybe when you go back to clinical, when you go back to your clinical setting tomorrow, just ask who your clinical instructor is. Have you ever heard of cultural humility? Just ask them and see what she does. Just non-scientific, but just sort of say in that regard. And in terms of, it's still not a clear delineation, of the two concepts. It's not. Cultural humility is what? That lifelong process of self-awareness, critical self-reflection of those imbalances that can exist, that we have to mediate in terms of providing the best care for our patients. There is a desire to thread this concept throughout the nursing curriculum. I kind of go along with that thought as well. Let's start at the freshman year, introduce the topic, and scaffold it, build it each year as you get stronger and further along in your education as nurses. We definitely need more nursing research in this area. We really do. Like I said, social work, medicine, psychology, even physical therapy. Light years ahead of us in nursing. Like as many nurses as we have in research, we should be light years along right with them in terms of this topic here. So in terms of some of the implications in nursing, let's design. And that's pretty much where I am right now, trying to design some kind of nursing workshop on cultural humility to instruct students, faculty, as well as practicing nurses. Workforce development, definitely this topic needs to get out to those that are in practice to hear their idea of what it is, if they know. If they don't know, give them an opportunity to learn what it is. And we definitely have to increase the diversity of our nursing faculty to our students in terms of understanding different cultures still are able to provide the education that is necessary to provide you with the best wealth and expanse of education. This society that we work in is very complex. It is very diverse. Patients, all your patients are not going to look like you. They're not all going to sound like you. They're not all going to dress like you. And we have to care for you with the utmost respect and sensitivity in terms of providing that care. So it's a multicultural society that we're in. It's not one size fits all. That doesn't exist in our healthcare environment today. I went in, as I said, without a theory, but I came out with one, quite by need, because I didn't have one that fit this concept. But now that I'm looking at self-reflection, self-awareness, I came up with Mesero as a theory to anchor my nursing research on in terms of that human communication, because that's what it is. Cultural humility is a human communication tool where I'm looking at critical reflection of assumptions of somebody else's frame of reference and helping to transform. Cultural humility is a transformative process. So it helps to facilitate that frame of reference, understanding, not to say you're going to change, but you just want to understand where that person is coming from. And hopefully they're listening to where you're coming from. And together you can mediate a point of questioning or exchange of ideas. You're not trying to force anything on anyone else. Also in our implication research, there is not a nursing vet tool to measure this. So I couldn't measure this with a nursing tool. Psychology has a tool. How come nursing? That was my question. So that's part of my responsibility now to try to help to see if in more research, a tool can help to be developed. Nursing education, again, providing that information on this topic to who I can get to listen in that regard, because it definitely has its place. And understanding nursing practice. Have you ever heard of the national class standards? National, culturally, linguistically appropriate services for patients. That is a national standard in nursing through the Office of Minority Health under a government agency where when we're providing care, we have to address their cultural needs of the patient appropriately and linguistically. I had a patient who did not hear, and I'm trying to communicate about medications. I had to get on a telephone line, dial a special number that connected to the patient's home telephone and monitor with an interpreter. I would speak to the interpreter. The interpreter had the patient on the monitor and would sign that whole conversation. And I could, from the interpreter, get the information back in terms of medication questions that the patient had and to provide the clarity. And yeah, it takes time. It's worth it. It was an hour of my day well spent. That's using technology at its best to provide the linguistic need, which was appropriate, excuse me, for that patient to provide the care. And we definitely have to increase our workforce of diversity in terms of nursing faculty. We have to. So just some food for thought. What if you're making that cake? And there's your flour. And self-care, that's your focus of this, your elective course here. Pay attention to self, maintaining self. What if you took self-awareness, your ability to step back and self-reflect on your thoughts, where your cultural influences are. Add in some critical self-reflection with critique into our bowl, remembering that we must add the ingredients of empathy, respect, culture, diversity, and mindfulness into our bowl of being a lifelong commitment. What kind of cake do you think you'll come out with? Just think, what kind of cake you think come out? If you put those in as your ingredients. Would you venture to say a cake would be better than what's in the bowl right now? Would you venture to say when you're dealing with patients that we have to draw on our empathy and respect for that patient? We have to critically self-reflect, well, where did that thought come from? Why did I just call that person a PIA? Where did that come from? Do I need to step back and look at what I am coming into? Did I rush into the room? Okay, come on, let's go. I'm going to teach you. Did I give him 22 pages of discharge instructions and say, see you later, bye? That happened. 22 pages of a discharge instruction sheet is yaya. But that's what's happening today. And I'm looking at the instructions, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm calling the patient day after hospitalization, and I'm like, oh, so you're coming in on such and such a day for your post-hospital visit. I am? Yes, in your discharge instructions. Plus 22 pages, where? And that question is so valid, where? Because I'm like, this is crazy. There's a better way of us presenting our care to patients that's more empathetic, definitely, with that self-awareness of where I am. Sometimes maybe we had a tough time getting to work or to school that day, whether it's in SEPTA, whether it's in I-95, wherever. But how you come into your interaction with your patients, with your staff, with yourself, will certainly balance out how you move forward in terms of your addressing the care. So let me go back to my question. It's going to be, what type of cake are you going to come out with? I didn't forget the question. What kind of cake you think? Yeah.
I would say, personally, what has coming out to you with Dr. Webster's research and why I thought there was relevance here for us to even go deeper into this class. A lot of this is relationship building to me, and we have to start with that critical self-reflection of how we treat other people and how we view ourselves. So we don't always balance this all well, but to me, I think we can maybe an active behavior and behavior. Hopefully that would be a cake that would rise very nicely and very peaceful versus something, if I didn't put the effort in, it would be very flat. Something that you just, I open it up and have to jump over the tiles and you say, what on earth happened to that? But I'm not relating it. So I think we're talking about the effort in our own critical self-reflection and how that's going to translate into our patients and all relationships. A lot of these guys, they did a self-assessment in first feedback. A lot of people talk about relationships.
Okay.
And how you want to foster, continue, improve, or maintain, So that's kind of how I see that.
It's going to be a multicultural, multi-diverse product that's going to come out with. That's what we're dealing with. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not going to be flat because you're adding to it, and you're raising the bar in terms of where you want to provide care in respect of honoring patients where they are and what they have or don't have, and still respecting them for individuals as humans that they are. So just in closing, I just want to leave you with the words of Stephen Covey, who wrote that book, The Success of 7 Essentials of Success, something like that he wrote. But one of the tenets he left certainly was to seek first to understand, then to be understood. And with that, seek to understand oneself, to understand others and where they're coming from in that respect. And one last quote that I found just today when I was getting together. This is from Confucius. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember, but I do and I understand. And it's just something to sort of to let marinate a little bit, along with Dr. Cody did. So thank you. Did you have any questions, any comments? I appreciate your attention today. It's a lot. It's a lot. Like I said, you're not going to go out and be, have this under your belt because it's a lifelong commitment. But if you could just start to think, to let that, in terms of your self-assessment, your self-awareness, come into play as you're moving forward. You're going to do a service learning project and just sort of see where this concept may come into that service learning of your project. Where will your service learning be happening?
It's actually going to be here. It's part of the NET for the freshmen.
Nice.
So, but it's a good reminder that when you're preparing, we do think would be appropriate for nutrition or even exercise or even sleep even. There might be implications that you want to look at from this cultural perspective. I can tell you all honestly, I have never heard of the concept of humility until the information came around with the faculty for leaders for Dr. Webster's proposal, and I thought, that's how interesting. I can be in the healthcare. And it really, fascinated me. And so I'm grateful that I didn't do it because I learned a lot. And it really made me kind of stop and think about self-awareness from that other angle, because I think that it is who we are, and then even as you look at them here, we can all look similar, but we all look different. And I agree. I think it has similarities and differences. Questions for Dr. Webster? It's a deep topic. And that's why situations take a long time.
Yes, yes.
And it was really excellent.
Well, thank you.
Stated until the iceberg, we had 2 hours of discussion about self-awareness and how culture plays into all these things.
It also plays in terms of life, not just in healthcare, but in life, how you interact with people. In that respect, definitely. But certainly, if you're in healthcare, how do we need all the tools we can to better manage our patient population that's out there. That requires our best. It really does, because we're in a position of trust. They trust us, that we're giving them the right medication, the right information. It's fast-paced, but it's certainly a worthwhile topic, and it resonates with me. And as I said, I'm a community health nurse at heart. It has its place. It definitely does. Whatever community is for that person, it's what it is for that person. And I sit down and I deal with my patient on their level, not my level, not as Dr. Webster is. Nurse Linda, tell me about you today. What's going on with you today? No, I see something's going on with you today. And you know, you enter into a conversation of trust, and they'll tell you, you'll hear whatever it is that you hear, and then someone will say, don't tell anyone. Promise you won't tell anyone. I said, I can't make that promise to you. Because if you tell me you're going to hurt yourself, else, I can't keep that a secret. I'm not going to keep that a secret. Well, nothing that bad. Well, what is it? And then you negotiate. What is it that you're talking about? It's like, I haven't had a bath in 2 days. Oh, you keep that a secret, right? Okay. Eat some more fiber and water and just start walking around a little bit. You'll be okay. And are you taking your Miralax? My black. Okay, patient education. You know, that's it's just as basic as that. And then hearing, perhaps you need to speak with a mental health professional that can help you more so. I want to talk to you. I'm not a mental health professional per se. I'm not a psychiatrist. I can direct you to one and helping that patient to that process of getting to that first visit. It took me almost a year to get a lady in to see a psychiatrist. Clearly she needed it, but her fear was just so paralyzing to her. I couldn't go with her, I couldn't do it for her, but she just helped her to get there. And when she finally got there, I was like, and you lived to tell me about it. That's great. That was a win-win for me. That was a win-win. I didn't ask her the contents of the interaction. That was privilege, but she certainly was like, you helped me to get there. And I'm like, well, thank you. I'm glad you went. She needed it. But so think of that in terms of your patients as you're moving forward. Where are you? If there's a mismatch, if there's feelings of angst or distrust, look at oneself first, and then look at the patient. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Tell me so I do know how, you know, in terms of turning you, it doesn't hurt as much. We've got to turn you, but tell me what works better for you. And that might help to engage a patient a little bit more in terms of their care and support. So, well, I thank you all for your attention. I wish you all the best. You will be professional nurses out there with us in a short time. So, and very soon. Yes, Dr. DePlant, thank you
Thank
so
you
much for the time.
Thank you for your time. I'm going to just step back in.
Yeah.